Last team is the Eagles. Eagles, we know how they did this offseason. They lost CJ Gardner Johnson, Javon
Tough.
Hargrave,
Tough.
Miles Sanders,
Tough.
Andre Dillard,
Tough.
TJ Edwards,
Tough.
Kazir White,
Tough.
Gardner Minshew, Zach Pascal.
Good for Garner. I think
And they replaced them with Marcus Mariota. Okay, that's fine.
that's fine.
Rashard Penny, I think he'll be better than Miles Sanders.
What?
Yes, I think he'll be better than Miles Sanders.
Okay. I think we're gonna draft a guy, but
Rashard Penny is going to be solid because of the offensive line. And then they signed Terrell Edmonds, the safety.
Terrell Edmonds. I was like, I thought you were gonna say they brought back Terrell Owens, and I was gonna lose my mind.
No, no, we wish. So yeah, those are the big additions. They also re-signed James Bradbury,
And-
Jason Kelsey, and Fletcher Cox. So
Yeah,
brought back Darius Slade too.
big re-signings there. It's unfortunate because the Eagles are just gonna go to the conference championship and lose to the Lions.
Yeah,
But I feel like it's going to be tough this year, and I feel like a lot of teams are going to have it out for the Eagles. But I feel like Jalen Hurts, you want to talk about a guy who can continue to get better. He made that huge leap in year 3. And a lot of people are trying to say that Jalen Hurts wasn't making tough throws. There was no difference in his mechanics, but Jalen Hurts absolutely went out there in the offseason. He is the son of a coach. So he has that work ethic in him. He is the absolute monster in the gym. He's putting up the squats, 6, 7 plates, however many you like.
700 pounds.
Yeah, for a guy that's his weight, I mean, pound for pound body strength, Jalen Hurts is an absolute monster. And then bringing Jason Kelsey back is an absolute must. He wants to win a Super Bowl with Jalen Hurts. And then you want to talk about a guy, I mean, Daniel Jones has the yip, but a guy who has the bark is Nick Sirianni. And then Nick Sirianni was like, I want this team to be very competitive. He was on the Kelsey Brothers podcast, and I thought the story was very telling. Jason was interviewing him, and he's like, this is the type of stuff we bring up in meetings. Nick Sirianni's like, I was at my house, and I was alone, and usually I have everyone else fix the things in my house, so I had a contractor in my house, and my fireplace had been broken for a while. It's like every time I use the remote and I try and turn my fireplace on, it's not working. And so I go out to this guy fixing my patio. Nick Sirianni says, he's like, do you think you can fix my fireplace? And then he's like, okay, I can take a look at it because I'm a contractor, jack of all trades type of guy. And then he's like, all right, first question, did you try looking at the batteries in the remote? And he was just like, what? Sure enough, goes, opens up the remote, replaces the batteries, boom, fireplace again. So he's like, this is the exact type of story he'll tell in a meeting where it's super goofy, a little bit entertaining, but he's like, we just missed the small details here, and those are the finer details we need to focus on refining to really stay competitive and keep that edge on there, and then taking full accountability for the Super Bowl loss upon himself. Jalen Hurts taking it upon himself, Jason Kelsey taking it upon himself for when he allowed the guy to strip Jalen Hurts of the ball. Still, Jalen Hurts should have held on to the ball, but it's like just like those little finer details is what's going to make the difference in these games. So I love his coaching style. I think he's still one of the best coaches in the league. I think he's right up there with the best of them right now. Still needs that first Super Bowl, but like everything the Eagles team stands for, like that story he told Jason Kelsey on the podcast, like that kind of summarizes, like it's a little bit funny, it's a little bit weird, but it works.
Yeah, of course. No, and I think that they might take a slight step back, but I don't see them taking a monumental. I don't think that the Super Bowl is a fluke. You have Jalen Hurts, who's going to continue to get better. You're going to have your weapons. You have a running game that I think will still be very paramount, and a defense where you still drafted Nakobe Dean. He didn't get much playing time last year. Now we get to see what he has. You have Jordan Davis, who's essentially being groomed behind Fletcher Cox when he decides to retire, which could be next season. So you have talent there. They're drafting ahead of time, knowing that these players are getting older, knowing that they're going to retire.
So luxury.
Yeah, seriously, serious luxury. And they have a bunch of depth. They did lose some of their depth with the losses that they had, but they have the 10th overall pick in this year's draft. So,
yeah, from New Orleans.
Yeah, from New Orleans. So they're going to have a stud defensive player, most likely, or maybe they get an offensive lineman, someone that Jason Kelsey can groom as he gets older. But they're not going to miss a beat. I mean, you're talking about the NFC. It's like 49ers, Eagles, Lions, and Cowboys.
In the 49ers, I have no idea who's going to be the quarterback. Is it going to be Purdy? Is it going to be Lance? Is it going to be Sam Darnold? Are they going to be ready to play in the playoffs? Are they going to be ready for that moment? I know Jared Goff is going to be. He's made it to a Super Bowl and he's shown he can take a team with firepower to the Super Bowl. And then Dan Campbell, Ben Johnson. It's like the Eagles are still probably the best offense and their defense is still good. Their defense was elite last year and they were giving the 49ers fits.
Right.
Even when Brock Purdy was there. So do I think they'll miss a beat? A little bit, but I don't think it's going to be as big as most people think because you did bring up a good point about how they had N'Kobe Dean. They're kind of grooming him but behind Javon Hargrave. And then people are like, oh my God, you lost that guy. And you're like, well, you just drafted this young guy to replace him. And they're basically drafting the replacements for their two biggest pieces on the defensive line. So those guys are going to have some playing time. So you can either go elite pass rusher at number 10. But for me, why don't you just go out there and get the best running back in the draft for really cheap? You'll have him for a while before you have to pay him with Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, and Devontae Smith, and then just overload the offense with firepower.